Batswana have an interesting demeanor that has two faces.
It feels like a very spiritual experience.
Yeah. For the very first time after 58 years in power, the BDP experiences defeat by the UDC. And the whole world, especially Africa and Botswana, is up in a roar. It's quite interesting times we are in. It's a shift in energy. Everybody can feel it. What does it mean? What does it bring? Regime change. That is the conversation on the Sapiosexual platter today. My name is Belle Seabo Ame.
My name is Shatani Somalakai, the
Sapiosexual platter.
So by the way, this is a special. We just want you to know.
Yeah.
Just as she said, there's no way we can't address the regime change. It came, you know, just like a thief in the night. Nobody expected it, like she said, in the way that it came about. And you just have to be here and feel the energy.
Yeah.
Both Belle and I actually participated in the election. We both voted. And just experiencing everything from voting day to the results coming out, the way that they came out. I was getting call after call. When you get on social media, it was just unbelievable. And How do you feel about it?
I was having a different experience because I'm often lost in my little world. So I didn't even know what was going on. I did not know what was going on. I just happened to go to her house. And then she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Why wouldn't I be okay? What do you mean, am I okay?" And she's like, "Have you seen what's happening on social media, what's happening in the country?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" You know, and obviously she's asking me if I'm okay because I genuinely care for leadership. I care for the government, and I'm always just actively learning, strategizing, observing, partaking to just make sure that the country is going in a certain direction that I feel is aligned with the ideals that I have for Botswana and Africa. So I'm like, what's going on? And she's just like, the results are coming out and it's not looking great for the BDP. It's not looking great for the government that has been ruling us for 58 years, you know?
Literally,
Yeah, because it's a shock to the system. And I think that's where the question was coming from. Like, it's a shock to the system. Like, oh my God, things are literally changing.
Yeah.
What's next?
Like, what's next?
What's next?
Yeah, and just to give a bit of perspective, I've been voting since I was voting age. You know, in 2014, it was hotly contested and it was really, really close. And in 2019, things just kind of went a different direction and the BDP just had an overwhelming majority.
Yes.
And so this time around, there were speculations around, okay, perhaps, you know, opposition might have ground.
Yeah.
But what we certainly didn't expect was what took place in the magnitude and the degree that it took place where, you know, like 3 hours after counting, it was clear, you know, or there was, you know, a bit of clarity around where it's going.
Batswana have like an interesting demeanor. Yeah, an interesting demeanor that has two faces.
Yeah.
So they would present as one thing, but act completely different.
Yeah.
So it's like they'll just be laughing with you, smiling you to your face, going Ajeke, Viva, everything. And then when they act, it's so different because even 2019, I think UDC thought they had it.
Yeah.
And they were sure, to the core.
Yeah.
And the results came out as they were.
As they were.
And the reason why UDC thought they had it is because of how people rallied behind them. They were at the rallies, they were wearing the T-shirts in large numbers. Even I was like, yo, this is the year that the regime change is taking place. And it didn't happen. And then this year, I think there was a somberness.
Yeah, this year it appeared, so it's kind of things went a different direction.
Yeah.
It appeared where the previous ruling party seemed to have an advantage in terms
Yes.
of their visibility on social media and in terms of campaigns. And, like she said, when you're talking to the average person on the street, it appeared as though this is the direction they're going.
Yes.
And then with the opposition parties, there wasn't a lot of visibility. I think you only began to see what was happening, with the presidential debates and the manifestos coming out. But there wasn't a lot of, like energy towards the campaigns, at least in my humble opinion.
What do you think led to the drastic results?
In terms of the BDP, they've been ruling for 58 years. However, during specifically Masisi's predecessor, being Ian Khama, there were a lot of changes in the world, but also in Botswana. And I think a lot of what transpired during his regime, people weren't necessarily happy about. The former president was starting off on, a negative. Because he had to really undo a lot of what, people weren't happy about Khama doing. Then during his time, then there was COVID. Which presented another challenge. And it was a new challenge because, again, it was something that the whole world was grappling with. How do you deal with it? And there wasn't like a blueprint for how do you deal with COVID. And again, I think a lot of people were unhappy about the way several things were handled. This year, there was one event after the next, to be honest, where examples would be, some of the bills that were attempted to be passed during this year. I know people were upset about the posture taken by the former president in the Batswana deal. And then we have, what transpired within the BDP structures itself. And so when you just kind of line all of those perceived injustices, it just creates the impression that let's try somebody else. Because for the longest time in Botswana, the reason why people pick the BDP is simply because there is no alternative.
You're saying that people were saying that there was no alternative. Why did people feel that way?
Because for the longest time, the critique with relation to opposition was that it was not organized. And so you look at the population of Botswana, and essentially then you have to be strategic about how you approach the election game. And so we had several opposition parties, and the reason why they would lose when it came to elections was simply because there was a split vote. And so sometimes they would be a majority, but because they're split, then you can't win. And then we introduced the umbrella for democratic change. And the idea of the umbrella for democratic change is to bring all these opposition parties under one umbrella in order to win the numbers game. But even within the umbrella for democratic, there was a sequence of events that gave the impression that you guys are not organized. And to the extent that you aren't organized, we can't certainly trust that we can give you state power. Because you've failed at a fundamental level of unity. And so to the extent that you aren't unified, we can't trust you, and therefore there's no alternative.
I think for me, assessing it all, I felt like 2014, Batswana wanted change because BDP was leading with a minority. And 2019, they felt like they got the change that they wanted because everybody was in a very sad state at that era. Then 2019, Batswana had cold feet and felt like since the person we wanted out is gone, let's still rally behind the BDP. There was a fear for change. And now, 2024, they've acted and they've gotten the change that they have been desiring innately. Because I think as an individual, when you feel that way, it adds on to the collective consciousness. But then like when I assess it, I don't think it's an action of Batswana necessarily hating the BDP so much. I think it's just tiredness, lethargy that you feel naturally when you've been at the same work environment for 20 years.
The monotony of it.
The monotony of it, to say, what would happen if a change comes about? So for me, it felt like it was just the opportune time where the land was ready for change.
It feels like a very spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, when you look at and you watch our now president, by the way, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
To the Umbrella for Democratic Change, our
Yeah.
new president, advocate Gideon Duma Boko, and our vice president, Ndaba Khaolate. Well done. And
Yeah.
wow, like we're...
Well done, well done.
But if you watch the videos, you can just see that they're also surprised. You know? It's like, I didn't
What does that
expect
happen?
this, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so I think it was beyond everyone. I think it was beyond everyone. It was a very spiritual experience.
Yeah.
It is quite actually time for change.
Yeah.
The universe is calling for change.
Yeah.
Africa is calling for change. The people are ready for change.
Yes. Do you think Botswana is equipped to deal with the uncertainty that comes with change?
Well, so that introduces the aspect of polarity,
Yeah.
which we've been interrogating with all these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And the polarity of change is the uncertainty that comes with it.
Yeah.
You know that you have to move, but you don't know where the movement will take you.
Yeah. It makes me feel like it's a scary place for the country to be at, because we haven't turned the compass inward into ourselves individually.
Yeah.
As a collective consciousness, we are chasing change, and we are unwilling to take accountability for change in ourselves and projecting it to government, political parties to save us. And it feels like there's just been a ceiling, a glass ceiling for so long that people are not able to permeate, because we have an extremely conducive environment. As the UDC is coming in, we're feeling the surge of energy. Maybe this is the change that we needed for that glass ceiling that is just hovering over the population to come out. But then it's also scary that the UDC is coming in, and obviously we hope that it'll be trying to do what it needs to do to get things moving. But would the UDC end up falling in the same trap as the BDP? Because as the collective consciousness of the country, people haven't turned inward to be the change they want to see.
Yeah.
And they are externally seeking it. And unfortunately, it's not going to come from the external world. It can only come from inside of you.
The conversation will obviously always be inclined to the government of the day, the policies of the day. What is the government doing?
Yeah.
How is it different from the previous government? And a lot of energy, if you go on YouTube, literally everywhere you turn, it's like, UDC, Botswana,
Yeah.
And the expectation is, because the government has changed, the country will change.
Yes.
And then the bigger question is, but how does change on a collective level actually take place?
Yeah.
Who are the pieces
Yeah.
that create the change? What are the moving pieces for change?
Yes.
And from what you've said, it's clear to me that it's not only the leadership, but it's also very much the system.
Yeah.
And the system is the people.
Yeah.
And so, can we truly achieve change if only the government changes, but the people don't? The other side of the coin can be that, well, to the extent that there is now a regime change,
Yeah.
it may be a reflection of the fact that people have been,
Have changed.
Yeah. reflecting
Yeah.
and looking inward. And that reflection and looking inward has now manifested in an external collective change.
Yeah. I'm actually excited to see where the new government is going to start. I mean, it's been literally, 6 days now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 6 days since we have had a new president. I'm excited to see where they're going to start, what they're going to start with. I'm excited to see what they're going to do that's so different, and how decisive are they going to be about choosing the areas that are of high impact, at least effort. But what has been interesting is the first thing that he did, assuming office, or to my observation, my limited observation, I'm sure he's done other things that we may not be aware of as a country, but publicly, has been creating a public holiday, a paid public holiday. And it's the day of inauguration. It's today.
Gideon Boko, do swear that I will faithfully and diligently discharge my duties and perform my functions in the high office of the Republic of President of the Republic of Botswana.
It's worthy of celebration,
Yes,
certainly.
for sure.
This is unprecedented. This is certainly historical.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit on the Labor Advisory Board, and issues around rest days in Botswana is something that we have discussed at length.
Yeah.
And the general consensus worldwide, and at least the business position in Botswana, is Botswana already has a lot of paid public holidays and non-paid public holidays.
Yeah.
And so cumulatively, when you put that together, from an economic perspective, there's an argument there. Yeah.
They have made very interesting promises to the public that the public have really loved and bought into, and that's why they've also won. They've promised to increase minimum wage to 4,000 pula.
4,000 pula, so that's about $350.
Yes.
USD.
USD. It'll be very interesting to watch closely how we make the jump from the 1.8 to
4,000.
to 4,000, because it's quite a big jump. But then you just wonder if people understand the implications of what it means minimum wage would be 4,000. That means everything also goes up, bread goes up, transport goes up.
Inflation, definitely.
Inflation, because everybody's trying to tap into that 4,000. But in relation to these changes is also the big elephant in the room, which is the diamond negotiations with De Beers.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see how the relationship evolves with UDC.
With the UDC-led government.
Yes, and what stance they're going to take. But what has been really phenomenal about this regime change, and I think what Botswana has done to really cement itself in the international world, is the transition to say we are a peaceful country. We've never had civil war.
Absolutely.
We have a very calm nation, and it's even seen with our former president, His Excellency Mokgweetsi Masisi, and how he's just doing everything in his power to support the new president, President Boko. So I love that this regime change, which is different parties handing power to one another, and it takes place so seamlessly. And I'm like, it's a vindication of sorts, because then we are holding the ethos of who we are as Batswana. And we're peaceful people, and that's just how we navigate things. And I think Africa is watching. I hope it is watching. I can see that it is watching. And to just say to African leaders, let's follow what has transpired between the two presidents.
This is how it's done.
This is how it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kudos to, of course, the previous administration led under Mokgweetsi Masisi. And, and a big welcome and congratulations to the new and new UDC-led government led by Advocate Gideon Boko. And so in as much as we're calling the government to be accountable, we too need to be accountable. In as much as we're calling the government to be proactive, we too need to be proactive.
Yeah.
And as much as we expect the government to do a lot, we too need to contribute heavily and immensely in building a new Botswana.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sapiosexual Platter. I am Belsabo Ame.
I am Shatani Samalaka.
And we are
the Sapiosexual Platter.